Hello everybody, Mike with Spray Jones coming to you with another informative video. I'm going to cover off by request a commentary, a quick one, on the Spray Foam UK roofing issues of internal residential light commercial buildings, wood frame construction that have received open and closed cell spray foam, and then there's been a blowback on this with mortgages and lending not wanting to underwrite any of this and loan money or give out insurance if these products are used to the underside of timber frame, wood frame construction. And in North America, we have an enormous amount of spray foam that goes into these buildings in these situations. So are we the next ticking time bomb? Well, you can have a glint in your eye and hope, just hope that spray foam will finally be banned because you've got an agenda, or you can listen and learn and sort through the information and get educated, which is what the new Spray Jones platform is going to be about. We're going to be revealing this in the new year to you. We're going to be asking you to become members, and we're going to be asking you to see what we're building as valuable, where it's not about voyeurism. It's not about the most amount of clicks possible on a video because we scare somebody. It's because we're bringing credible information from multiple sources and really credible sources, right? People of experience and knowledge. And that's what I want to do, is really have a marketplace of ideas coming together and experience. So that's the new thing that we're working on. And today we're just going to put a stake through this vampire's heart, because more and more I get asked this. It used to be smell and odors, and then it was, for a short period of time, it was concern about fire retardants and in the foam, and that one's still not fully going away. We're going to explain that one even better. But now it's the whole, well, you're not going to get a mortgage on this building. So let's go into this and explain what's going on. And if you want to jump out of this video really quickly, it's really an easy answer. It is, in some situations, wrong product for the application. And in other situations, it's already faulty, problematic, compromised roofs that were never dealt with and repaired before open and closed cell foam was installed. Therefore, the moisture is still allowed to come in, but be stopped and held at various locations where it can now do further damage and be harder to detect. So let's get into it here today, and let's take a look at what information that we've got. Now, a year ago, I came across this webinar, New Guidance on Spray Foam Insulation Inspections, Property Care Association, and I sat down and watched it. And I'm going to go through it so you don't have to do the whole entire 1 hour. I'm going to give you the bullet points, but Stephen Hodgson is going to do a very thorough and fair evaluation on foam. He's the CEO of Property Care Association, and he doesn't come into it with a hot head. He doesn't come in saying foam is bad, that it shouldn't be used in these situations, but he doesn't say that everything that the spray foam guys were doing was correct either. So out of phase one of his overview, he stated that his entire purpose for their webinar and what they had been contracted to do was to evaluate and to get as much research as possible on the addresses and the places that they were seeing. And he wanted to talk to as many stakeholders as he possibly could. And when he did this, he noticed that the first thing was that there was an inconsistency in lenders' policies, meaning that one would ban and one wouldn't, and one would allow it under certain conditions and not. So the first thing that they wanted was to get established and consistent lending policies. And then he noticed the next thing was that there was a lack of accountability from installers. Well, surprise, surprise. In human nature, you are going to have people, whether they're roofers or accountants or concrete people or electricians or mechanics, you're going to have unscrupulous people that are going to do certain things. One, sometimes because they don't know any better. Two, they just don't care. Three, they're just out to make a quick buck and nothing applies, right? So you're going to see accountability issues. But if you've got credible product, credible methods that have been reviewed, then you can put together an entire system of installation that should alleviate and remove risk and minimize risk so that everybody involved can benefit. So one of the things that they noticed was that the surveyors, they call them surveyors, we would call them inspectors here, didn't know what they were looking at. They had no working knowledge, and that there was inconsistencies in how everybody was coming up with conclusions. That there was a lack of accountability and that there wasn't forthright communication happening. So no one person had the entire picture, and that the big culprit in all of this is that there had been no mechanism to detect and deal with moisture risk. So you were walking into situations where roofs were already wet, they were already compromised, he was saying, and nobody was picking up on that. They were just selling. And I mean, at the top of this screen here, you're seeing that there's a brochure here with 25% off in November. So if you're into a sales culture, it's sell, 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 get more addresses sprayed versus should we be spraying these addresses? Do they have problems? Is there pre-existing conditions that are going to create bigger issues down the road? And that's exactly what they ran into, putting foam to structures that were compromised and not having a mechanism in place so that they could detect moisture and manage it. Other observations that they brought in were that there are methods to put the foam on correctly. The foam is credible, but are they being applied? Are there certain procedures that should be done? And if so, what are they doing about them? And what should those procedures be? And then what is the quality assurance of the spray foam and the methods of what they're using? How are they going to ensure that you use the right foam at the right thickness on the right substrate? They needed details, right? They needed specific knowledge. And they recognized that the industry needed additional knowledge and additional training. That the surveyors, as they call them, or the inspectors, they weren't up to speed on what was going on. What are they looking at? How are they going to detect what's correct? How are they going to know? So there's a big knowledge gap. Again, that's why Spray Jones exists, is to try and bring credible knowledge to the industry to educate you. So in their report, they started to examine open and closed cell. They wanted to understand underlays and their natures of how they would change the moisture movement dynamics on the building. Where is the foam being applied? You know, is it being applied direct to the underside of the roof? Is there going to be ventilated strips or cards? They call them ventilation cards over there. I kind of like that. Are you doing part of the roof in a retrofit, or are you doing all of it? You know, how many times we get asked to come out and do a section over here and a section over there, and we've had to tell people, no, we can't do that. It's not going to solve your problem. You're going to have greater problems over here. So how is it being applied? Where is it being applied? Then what is the workmanship? What's the craftsmanship? Both of the foam that's being installed, but also what was the workmanship like of the roof that they're dealing with? Was it suspect to begin with? Were there problems? And then did the foam bond to the substrate? Did it create other gaps? Did they leave other areas open that should have been closed? Did they close off areas that should have been open? So they wanted to know exactly what they were seeing and why things were the way that they were in the field. So get the data. Don't generalize from a specific instance of failure is what I say all the time. Find out what caused it to go wrong and why. Out of their evidence, and their visual inspections, they found that most of the existing roofs had to be evaluated thoroughly, and that meant a pre-inspection prior to foam, that they should have been inspected with ladders and externally with drones, and that they should have been using damp meters, and that a full-on report on the condition of the roof and the structure of it, the underlays, everything that it had, needed to be evaluated first to determine whether or not they should even be going to foam insulation. And then they needed evidence of the defects, not just, we think you might, they needed to show a full-on roof report, right? Show existing issues. And then what would be ongoing, progressive Rain penetration. Where is moisture going to come in at? How has it been happening so far, and what's going to happen? And then other pre-existing workmanship issues. Did somebody cut something through? Did other tradesmen modify something? Like I've seen where you put in a plumbing stack or a ventilation stack or a vent stack, and now you're going to have to deal with that, because if you don't, it's going to allow condensation to come in various areas. This all meant that they needed to come into a handover package. So the homeowners should have been receiving a detailed inspection report, is what they're saying, on the condition of their roof, address any of the issues. Maybe they needed to spend a year or two's worth of money repairing existing issues. And then from there, they could have gone with the correct foam, the correct thickness, in the correct manner, because certain situations you do not want to be putting open cell foam into situations where it can get wet and stay wet. Likewise, closed cell foam is great, and it should be used in many, many situations, but you don't want to be putting closed cell foam into a pre-existing situation where there was water, and now you're stopping it and changing where it's going to go, but you haven't dealt with the leak. See, there's two envelopes always going with a roof, right? The exterior envelope is supposed to keep you watertight and dry. And then the interior envelope is supposed to keep you dry from a condensation vapor drive issue from in to out, right? Those are two separate envelopes. And what I say to people is, when do you want the water to stop? Because you don't want to choose products continuously that don't provide you any waterproofing, right? You want water to stay at the roof level outside where it's supposed to be, where it can be drained and gone and then re-dried. That's where you want it. You don't necessarily want to say, well, the second that fails, I want the water to come inside my building and travel all along the studs and travel along the floor of the attic and pool over here and pool over there and find its way down through this drain hole into my basement and into my house and drip down my wall for 2 months before I finally discovered that the drywall's mush. But then thank the Lord that I did, because you know what? Hey, I've got a leak somewhere in my roof. That's ludicrous. That kind of thinking doesn't make sense to me. I want to have waterproof to the outside with multiple layers of protection. And then I want to choose the best insulation I possibly can get on the inside to back that up and take care of the thermal envelope internally. And you've got to choose whether that's open cell or closed cell. So in their evaluation, you would get a report on the roof, and then you'd have your product matched, how much, where, and how. That would be installed. Then there would be a follow-up inspection on making sure that the foam is installed correctly and how it was supposed to be. And then a handover package would go to the homeowners, verifying the entire start to finish, cradle to grave process. And then that would lead them to further follow-up in investigation. And I would say there's something very important that nobody really discussed too much in this report, is that open cell foam as a standalone product, if you have the correct amount of vapor drive, if you're in cool enough, wet enough climates, you've got to deal with the vapor drive through open cell material. Closed cell is the only product that is an all-in-one. So if you're dealing with coolness and damp with the correct amount of moisture going through it, because certain areas have enough drying time that any accumulated moisture would be able to back its way out of the assembly. But in areas where you've got, like the UK, where it's going to be rainy and damp and it's going to be cool and it's going to be hovering around these certain temperature drive times for various lengths of the year, then you should be installing vapor barriers on the inside when using open cell foam. And you should be putting open cell foam to situations where there's multiple layers of protection to prevent it from ever getting wet. Because once it gets wet, it's open and it can absorb the moisture and hold it. There's a reservoir effect in open cell foam, whereas closed cell does not. It's not going to hold the water in. It's going to hold the water at face value, so other things externally can become damaged, but they were already compromised. It's not that it necessarily sped it up or instigated it happening. So in the end, their conclusions showed that lending could continue, insurance could continue, that people's fears could be put to rest very simply and very easily by getting quality information who, what, when, where, how, why. All of these things could be distributed in a professional manner as it should be, and therefore the true cause and effect of what is the risk, why would it be risk to put it here, to put it there, are known. And then you've got a verifiable product that, one, will last. And that's what everybody wants. It's what the bank wants. It's what the insurance company wants. You want to put a quality product in the first time that's going to have minimal issues, and any of the issues that you have are down to routine maintenance. And that things aren't fear-driven, because all products require care and oversight. And spray foam is no different. But the spray foam never has been your principal waterproofing for your roof. Never has been. Not with how it's installed underneath the roof decking. So even if we put it to the outside of the building, we'd still have a primary roofing material that would be the contact with all weather, with all hail, rain, birds, sunshine, you name it, wind, right? It wouldn't just be foam. So I find it's very easy to blame the spray foam for something that it's not doing, right? And it's like sitting there saying that we're going to ban people from driving because of some drunk drivers. You know, say it's just too dangerous that somebody's going to drink and get in, therefore everybody should be banned. That's sort of the knee-jerk reaction that I see going on here. But at the end of his conclusion of his report, they were saying that they should be able to easily restore faith in the product so that the spray foam people have work to go do. The credible, licensed, trained installers are actually getting the work, that reports are being done, that surveyors or inspectors can come out and do proper evaluations, and that proper knowledge and handoff packages can be given to the end users. When we have all of that, all those four things going in concert properly, lending is easy, underwriting is easy, and there's no issues, right? So that dispels sort of the myth, and I think it gives greater credibility that foam can be used, because it's not the culprit that everybody makes it out to be. So click on the like, share, subscribe. Stick around, because I've got the new Spray Jones platform coming out in 2025. We're going to want to get as many of you over on that as possible to keep this kind of information and content going. We'll talk more about that later. Thanks for checking this video out. Leave a comment. I'd like to know what you have to say and think. Talk to you then.